Hey, it's me, Nalthazar, and welcome to another video. In this one, I'm going to be going over the 5 brand new Planeswalkers that are being introduced in the new M21 set. So we've got a brand new monocolored Planeswalker for each color. And so let's just go ahead and dive right into it. The first of those walkers is an entirely new Planeswalker to the Magic universe. It's going to be Basri Ket. Basri Ket is going to be our white Planeswalker. All of the new Planeswalkers that are being introduced in M21 are going to have the +4, +4, +3, -1, layout. So they're all going to have +4 in their primary color, and then they're going to be given a secondary color of +4 and another color of +3. Now, Basri Ket, his 3 abilities are going to be Trial of the True, Remembrance of Solidarity, and Oketra's Everlasting Army. These abilities really all deal around tokens and buffing up a creature and populate. So the first ability for 9 loyalty gives a creature you control +4/+4 and bravery. Bravery is going to make it so that at the beginning of combat, it's going to move into the first position amongst creatures you control. Then if that creature's base power is 3 or less, it gains flying, lifelink, and prevent damage until end of turn. All in all, Trial of the True is a pretty weak ability. It only gives 1 creature +4/+4. It does indeed give it bravery, but I mean, I don't see that as being a mechanic that I'd want to spend 9 loyalty on. Which brings us to the second ability, Remembrance of Solidarity. So this one's going to cost you 12 loyalty, and if you control 2 or less creatures, create X soldier tokens. That means that when you use the ability, if you've got 2 creatures on the battlefield or less, then you are going to create the soldier tokens. X is going to be the number of non-token creatures and non-token creature reinforcements you control. Otherwise, populate X times, and then you gain X life. Once again, the populate X times and the gain X life is going to be based on the number of non-token creatures and creature reinforcements you control. Now, if you're going to be able to get a lot out of this ability, that means that you're going to have a lot of a non-token creature and reinforcements on that non-token creature, which really, I mean, if you think about it, like the creatures that you're using are probably going to have some decent base power toughness. So, I mean, I really don't see this ability being very strong, just like out the gate. I mean, these are all just my first takes, right? This is just my first take of looking at the Planeswalker. If you're going to be using Remembrance of Solidarity, you're probably going to be killing your opponent anyways. Soldier tokens are 1/1 human tokens, or human. They're 1/1 soldier tokens. And so I really don't see, like, if you've got 10 of a creature and reinforcements down, I really don't see you wanting to make 10 1/1 soldier tokens. So that brings us to our third ability. That's Oketra's Everlasting Army. You're going to create an Oketra's Everlasting Army token. That's a support. And then target creature you control permanently gains Bravery and Vigilance. The Oketra's Everlasting Army support token is going to have 2 abilities. So the first one is at the beginning of combat on your turn. If you control 2 or less creatures, create 3 soldier tokens. Otherwise, populate 3 times. So if you use it, if you use the ability, you have 2 creatures out, then you're going to create 3 tokens. That's going to bring you to 3 creatures, and then the next turn, you'd be populating instead. And so populating would make it so that the first creature token that you have gets reinforced 3 times. Which means that those 1/1 soldiers are just going to be getting reinforced 3 times. So, I mean, granted, there are some powerful tokens out there, but getting a 3/3 every turn doesn't strike me as super strong. And then when your first creature attacks, your other creatures get +X until end of turn. X is equal to the number of your first creature's reinforcements. Now, this is kind of cool because when you create the Oketra's Everlasting Army token, ideally, you're going to have some soldier tokens down, which means that you will then probably want to give those soldier tokens bravery, because then they'll be in the first slot, which means that they are going to be passing on the +X equal to their reinforcements. And so that's really what's going to be giving value to that Oketra's Everlasting Army ability, is that you can give those tokens bravery. Sadly, the only leader for soldiers is Elspeth Sun's Nemesis. Her third ability creates a token that has leader soldier. This would be a really cool ability and a really cool Planeswalker, I think, if we had a soldier leader in Standard, but we don't. So that brings us to the second walker, Chandra, Heart of Fire. Chandra, Heart of Fire is going to have 117 health. For her 3 abilities, she's got Heart of Fire, Spellburn, and Mana Eruption. Heart of Fire is going to deal 5 damage to any opposing target, then your first creature gets +5/+0 until end of turn. So you could potentially use this to deal 10 damage in a turn using your first ability. The second ability, Spellburn, is going to create a Spellburn enchantment token. Discard all cards without mana from your hand and draw 3 cards. That Spellburn enchantment token is going to have prowess. So every time you cast a non-creature card, you're going to deal 2 damage to your opponent's planeswalker. It'll also have, when your opponent casts a spell, deal 4 damage to your opponent's planeswalker. I could see this being a kind of fun thing in Legacy if it had more than 2 shields, because then if you were up against a green deck and you were like, oh, well, green Legacy means crazy gem conversion, so if they're going to play a bunch of spells, let's go ahead and ping them for 4 damage for every spell they cast, which would be kind of fun. And so, I mean, you could still do that, but that emblem with 2 shields is definitely going to break pretty quickly from all the green landfalls. Which brings us to our third ability, Mana Eruption, which reads, fetch up to the first 6 different spell cards from your library, then destroy 15 non-red gems. So, I mean, like, my first take on Mana Eruption is that it's like a more expensive in worse version of Koth's first ability. Koth's first ability costs 6 loyalty and destroys 12 non-red gems, which means that it's 15 less loyalty to destroy 3 less gems and not fetch the first 6 different spell cards. Now, the one cool thing about Mana Eruption is that in fetching those different spell cards, you can get potentially 6 different cards, and then you fetch those before you destroy the red gems. On the downside, though, this Shandy only has +4 to her red mana bonus, so I really don't see you getting a whole bunch of mana from this. I could be wrong, right? I could be totally wrong. I could be totally off my mark. It's just, it doesn't strike me as a super powerful planeswalker with a super powerful ability that would merit me wanting to use a monocolor planeswalker out the gate. This brings us to the third planeswalker. It's Garruk Unleashed, brand new Garruk, mono green. Garruk Unleashed his 3 abilities are Unleash Instincts, Hunting Pack, and Predator's Trial. Unleash Instincts is going to give target creature you control +6/+6 and trample until end of turn. Then if that creature's base power is 5 or greater, you draw 2 cards. This ability only costs 6 loyalty. It gives a creature 6/6 until end of turn, which is mediocre, but it also can be used to draw 2 cards, which is fantastic. So you've got some reasonable flexibility, and this really doesn't cost that much loyalty. I'd say that it's actually a good ability. The second ability, Hunting Pack, I mean, as soon as I saw this, my mind was whirring with ideas. I was like, oh my gosh, there is so much cool stuff you can do with this. Because your first non-token creature gains Leader Beast, then create 3 beast tokens. If your opponent controls more creatures and creature reinforcements than you, you gain 6 loyalty. This only costs 12 loyalty, which means if you get that 6 loyalty back, you're getting half the loyalty for Hunting Pack again. Now, your first non-token creature gains Leader Beast. That means that whenever you make a beast token, that token's going to get exiled, and that creature is going to be reinforced. Now, there's a whole bunch of really wacky shenanigans you can do with this. Basically, Hunting Pack is just going to immediately reinforce your first creature 3 times, which is absolutely staggering and massive. Now, let's go ahead and pretend that your first creature is this brand new M21 card, Elder Gargaroth. Now, this thing is a beast, it's a 9/9, but that means that this thing is going to get reinforced 3 times immediately, and then when it attacks or blocks, it's going to get reinforced again, because whenever this creature attacks or blocks, you can choose to create another beast token. That means that you pop the ability, boom, it gets 3 reinforcements. Then it attacks, it gets a 4th reinforcement. Now, let's just go ahead and say that we're using the Ikoria Mutate creature that also says mutate, create a beast token, right? So then with that, this dude, you play this dude, you got 1 copy of it. Then you mutate it, that's 2 copies. You use the ability, excuse me. So you use Garruk's ability, you give it Leader for Beast, it's going to reinforce 3 times. Then you play the Mutate card on this. It reinforces, creates a beast token, which reinforces it again. Then it attacks, it reinforces again. You've gotten 7 reinforcements that first turn. Now, if somehow your opponent's going to be able to survive this incredible onslaught, and they have creatures that attack you, let's say hypothetically they have 3 creatures out that means that this big baddie is going to block probably all 3 of those creatures because I really don't see them having enough power to be able to kill 63 toughness. And then it's going to, for each one of those creatures attacking, reinforce again. So it could reinforce 3 more times. It could have 10 copies or become a 90-90 just that first turn that you play it and attack with it with Garruk's ability. So I'm really excited to try this out. This is absolutely an amazing ability. I mean, you could pair this with Gaia's Revenge. There's a lot you can do with it. There's a lot of flexibility. It's strong, guys. It's really, really strong. It makes me think, is there even another ability that I'd use on this Garruk? But wait, it's like an infomercial. It's like, but wait, there's more. You got Predator's Trial. So create a Predator's Trial token, then fetch the first 2 non-creature cards from your library. So, okay, cool. It's going to fetch supports and spells, but the token itself is pretty savage. While on the board, your first creature gains Berserker and Trample. Then, at the end of your turn, pick one of the first 4 different cards from your library and move that to play under your control. So it's just like every turn you just get something for free. That's awesome. That's amazing. That's crazy. And then it's got Morbid. Then your creatures get +1/+1. I mean, like the Morbid trigger at the bottom is like, why? I mean, I want +1/+1, but like the ability itself is really good. I could see myself using Predator's Trial and PvE, but Hunting Pack is definitely what makes this Garruk. That's crazy. Like, there aren't that many things that make beast tokens in Standard, but for the few things that do, if you have them and you're able to put them together in a deck for this Garruk, you're going to do some dirty, dirty things to your opponent. Really dirty things. I'm very excited for this Garruk. I could see it being placed pretty highly on my tier list with regard, like, depending on what you have, right? So definitely have to test it out, though. The next walker is Liliana, Waker of the Dead. Her first ability, Vess's Contempt, costs 6 loyalty. Each player discards the last card without mana from their hand. If your opponent can't, they lose 6 life, and you gain 6 life. I really can't see any real situations where I'd want to use that ability. Each player discards a card, so you do and your opponent does. Yes, you get to put a card in your own graveyard for this, but one card at a time. There's definitely more efficient ways of getting rid of cards. Like, I'm thinking like Garuda, for example. And then the 6 life swing for both sides just really isn't that significant. So I don't see myself using Vess's Contempt. The second ability, Undying Torment. Target opposing creature gets -X until end of turn. X is the number of cards in your graveyard. If that creature dies, return it to the battlefield under your control and give it the zombie subtype. So this one you really have to build up to because you have to play a bunch of things that are going to get cards into your graveyard. If this was, for example, the second ability on Liliana, I want to say Death's Majesty, where her first ability mills 8 cards from your deck, this would be an amazing ability. But this Liliana's first ability just puts 1 card in your graveyard, which means that she's really not enabling you to use that second ability very much. It's going to rely entirely on your collection. And on top of that, the creature gets -X, where X is the number of cards in your graveyard, and it's only until end of turn. It's not even a permanent --. Now, getting the creature back under your control and it permanently becoming a zombie is pretty cool. I'm sure that you could get some pretty wacky interactions and shenanigans with that. In general, I don't personally like playing with my opponent's cards. I'd rather play with my own cards, but it's cool that it's tacked on there as an extra thing. The third ability, Waker of the Dead, is going to create a Waker of the Dead token. Then you may destroy target creature you control, and if you do, draw 2 cards and gain 9 life. So the token itself reads, at the beginning of combat on your turn, pick one of the first 3 different creature cards from your graveyard and move it to play under your control, then give it the zombie subtype. So once again, this could do some interesting things in that you could get some cool zombie tribal synergy going by turning everything into your deck into zombies. But this ability is largely underwhelming to me. You get 1 creature per turn. You get 1 the first turn that you use this. Whereas, I mean, if you look at Liliana 1, she gives you 3 creatures the first turn that you use it. If you've got the Morbid, then your zombie creatures get +1/+1. But, I mean, to get +1/+1 is really not a significant buff. You can use the second part of the ability to destroy your creature, draw 2 cards, and gain 9 life to trigger the Morbid, but I really don't see very many situations where I'd want to do that unless I'm playing a lose creature objective, and even then I'd rather play Liliana Death's Majesty. I think that's the one that lets you have the first ability. I think it's called Anoint, where you sacrifice a creature, it comes back, and it gets a power boost. So this Liliana honestly looks really weak to me, very underwhelming. Kind of sad about that one. Our final walker is the main walker of the set. This set is about Teferi, I believe, and so we get a mono blue Teferi Master of Time Planeswalker. So Teferi's got 3 abilities also, so I mean I guess all Planeswalkers in this game do. We don't have like a Jace the Mind Sculptor nonsense type of thing going. So the first ability, Winds of Fate, you discard the last card without mana from your hand and draw 3 cards, then create a Winds of Fate token. That Winds of Fate token is going to be a support with 2 shields and prowess, so whenever you cast a non-creature card, your first creature gets +1/+1 in flying until end of turn. Then it's got Anticipation, so when you play a card during your opponent's turn, drain 2 mana from the first card in your opponent's hand. They are reworking Flash, they mentioned that in a Q&A, so I'm interested to see how this works out when they rework Flash, but just at the moment it seems underwhelming because Flash is not a very good mechanic, and the prowess for +1/+1, I mean it's cool, but I'd probably rather use his other abilities. The second ability, Timeless Image, is very strong and very cool. So disable target creature until the beginning of your next turn. If it's an opposing creature, create a copy of it on the battlefield under your control. Otherwise, reinforce it. So you can use this to disable one of your creatures and just immediately reinforce it, or you can use it to disable one of your opponent's creatures and get a copy of it. Now, because you're disabling the creature, if it's your own creature, when you reinforce it, you're not going to get any enter the battlefield effects. For that matter, in general, when you reinforce something, it doesn't get enter the battlefield effects. Mutate is rather unique in that regard in doing that. But nonetheless, it still makes it so that you can just get a copy of an opponent's creature and get a leg up on them because they're not going to be able to attack you on their next turn, but on your next turn, you'll be able to attack them. So pretty cool ability. I really like that. Even though, like I said with Liliana, I don't usually like playing with my opponent's cards, this gives you a form of like pseudo control, plus you get something out of it. You could use it in a pinch. Now, the third ability is particularly unique. So Master of Time, create a Master of Time token, draw 3 cards. Now that Master of Time token, when you make your first match during your turn, gain 2 extra swaps. So every turn, you get a guaranteed 3 swaps if you've got this Master of Time down. That's going to give you crazy mana and crazy loyalty. The things that you can do with this are... let's just say it's interesting. It's really interesting. I cannot wait to play this Teferi. And then on top of that, it's also got Resourceful too. So when you draw your second and third card, the first non-creature card in your hand gains 2 mana. So it's going to give you mana, which isn't like bad at all. I mean, it's up to 4 mana per turn, your turn and your opponent's, because Resourceful also triggers on your opponent's turn when you draw cards from something with Flash. But nonetheless, gaining those extra swaps is going to be really interesting to see, especially since you get it every single turn. So I'm really interested to see how this all works out with being able to do that. I would imagine that because that means you get to set up all the gems for yourself, you could even potentially match to make it another 5 match on purpose. And yeah, I feel like there's a whole bunch you can do with this Planeswalker. It definitely looks really cool. So I'll just have to try it out before I really give my final verdict on it. So those are the 5 walkers that have been introduced that are being introduced in M21. These are just my first thoughts, my first takes on them. They're all new to me, just like they are to you. So I'd love to hear what you guys think about them. I'm eager to hear which Planeswalker you're the most excited to get your paws on and play. Mine is definitely Garruk, followed by Teferi. But I'm really excited to try new Garruk. So thanks so much for watching. Keep an eye out for my Mythic, Masterpiece, Rare, Common, and Uncommon Chase card videos. Those are coming up soon. If you haven't joined my Discord yet and you'd like a community to join, go ahead and join. Link is in the description. We've got 50+ members strong right now. It's a thriving community. It's fantastic. It's a lot of fun. Thanks so much again. See you in the next one.